Little technical hitch, but we'll start momentarily. Hi, everyone. Welcome again. My name's Tom. I'm from the Impact Hub Global team. This is the last session of day one of the Makers Festival. So today has all been focused on integrating. And today, to close day one, we have a really great friend of the Impact Hub Network, the Wellbeing Project. And Impact Hub and the Wellbeing Project have been collaborating for many, many years now. Impact Hub has been a co-creator of the Wellbeing Project, and that means that we've helped develop the organization strategy, but we also work to bring Impact Hubs and entrepreneurs closer to the opportunities being developed by the Wellbeing Project. And that includes resources, trainings, and events. And even two of our Impact Hubs have hosted Wellbeing Hearth Summits on behalf or with Wellbeing Project. So it's really great to have the team here today. And over the next hour, you'll be learning about the work that Wellbeing Project does and what that means for how we can build a culture of well-being. But also what that means for you and your Impact Hub and your organization and your community. So I would invite you to participate in this session, think about those opportunities that the Wellbeing Project has to offer you, but also what inspiration you can get from what you can bring back to your communities and how you can cultivate that culture within your Impact Hub or your community partner, if you're one of our community partners with us today. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our friends at the Wellbeing Project now. So we have Alejandra, Aaron, and Sean. So thanks so much for joining us today, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Tom. We're so grateful and honored to be here. And to all of you for joining today, we're excited for this session. Before we start, any words, Sean, Aaron, a quick hello?
Maybe I'll just add just to what Tom said, we're really, really big fans of the Impact Hub. The Impact Hubs locally and all the makers that we've gotten to know, it's just an extraordinary community and group. And so very excited to be together with you here. It's been a really extraordinary journey for us over the last, I think, 10 years now with Impact Hub. And it's nice to see a number of friends actually in this conversation with us. So looking forward to it. Sean?
Oh, echoing that, of course. I started my role as a change maker at the Hub in Stockholm before it became the Impact Hub. I see Jesper's on the call here as well. So really great to continue to be part of the Impact Hub network and to have this partnership. So very looking forward to today. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. And Al, if you can help us sharing the screen with the presentation, please. We wanted to start this call with, I would say, the most popular ritual that we have at the Wellbeing Project, which is starting our calls with a quick check-in to see how we all are arriving to the call. If you can move to the next slide, please. So for today, our well-being check-in is to ask you all to please write in the chat, why are you here? Sharing a word or phrase that describes what your intentions are for being here, for being part of the community, making the space and time to be here, sharing this call with us today. We would love to read your intentions. Stefan, thank you. To listen and to understand. Mala, interested to learn. Maria, to learn more about the Wellbeing Project. Petruta to learn as well. Fatima, interested in the topic, would like to apply some tips in the team. A lot of learning from this session. Maria, learn, connect, and grow. Learn and connect, learn and engage. How to create a better space for my hub as a psychologist. Zoe is sharing. She thinks it's important to create these spaces for this topic. Ceci, bring best practices to the local community. Emily, get new insights and gain new perspectives. Support each other and learn how to incorporate more well-being into every day. Us too. We're really happy to be here to engage with you guys, to listen to you too. There will be a space at the end of this call for your questions and thoughts and reflections. And a huge part of why we're here is also to connect with you guys and to explore possible collaborations and synergies all over the world. So thank you. Thank you all for sharing all of your intentions. And it's beautiful to see what brings us together today and that our intentions are similar. Thank you. Well, as Tom mentioned, I'm Alejandra. I work in the networks team in the Wellbeing Project, and I'll be sharing this call today with Aaron and Sean. And first, starting, if you can please advance Al to the next slide, with a bit of the story of the Wellbeing Project and how our work has shifted into a regional approach, sort of like how you guys work at the Impact Hubs. So the Wellbeing Project started over 10 years ago. Our mission is to shift the culture in the social change field to one that is centered in well-being, everything from individual, organizational sector to planetary well-being. And what's beautiful about this work is that we do everything through collaboration and through co-creation. As Tom mentioned, Impact Hub is one of our anchor co-creators, as well as the others that you see here on the screen. Ashoka, Georgetown, Cinergos, Skoll Foundation, and Porticus. And since the project was born 10 years ago, everything we do and the work that we lead and everything we do, is through collaboration. We see that this is the best way to get our creative juices flowing and learn from one another, from our experiences, context, expertise, and abilities. And to this day, our work has grown to be co-created with over 50 institutions from all over the world, with these anchor co-creators that started since the beginning. And our partners around the world, what we call change makers, include everything from nonprofits, social entrepreneurs, social leaders, impact leaders, intermediaries, foundations, philanthropists, academics and universities or educational institutions, research centers, media groups, venture capital, and also in the arts, museums, artists, musicians. So our work and audience has grown a lot. And we see that this as the best way to keep catalyzing this change and advancing this movement together. If we can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. And today we're working with more than 1,200 organizations around the world. Our work is divided into different areas. The first work that we do is strengthening the research case for well-being. So we partner with research centers all over the world to keep diving into this link between inner well-being and outer well-doing. The slogan of the Wellbeing Project is "Well-being inspires well-doing." We deeply, deeply believe that, and our research digs deeper into that link. The second thing we do is we steward and connect our growing networks. Part of the work that we do is bringing people together from different places around the world, working in similar areas and that have similar interests. All of our networks and communities are looking for the same objective. How can we change the way we do things so that well-being is at the center and at the core of the social change field? So we steward and connect people all over the world, and we hold different networks. One of our largest networks, for example, is a university network with universities from all over the world. And in stewarding and holding these networks, we also help accelerate their initiatives, connecting them with potential partners and stakeholders, depending on the work that each is doing. So we're kind of a matchmaker in that sense as well. And the last thing that we do, and we've been doing since the beginning, is to shift the narrative around well-being. Well-being is a topic that is sort of a taboo for some time. During the COVID, it became more normal to talk about this, and we see it more in the mainstream, but there's still a lot of work to be done. So part of our work is storytelling and working together to shift this narrative around doing this and sharing stories and testimonies between partners in our networks. We also convene summits where we can explore the topic of well-being together, learn from each other, and learn what's out there in the different levels of well-being, since what I mentioned, individual, organizational sector, and planetary. And we see that this work is growing a lot in the different years with our partners, with you guys at Impact Hub as well. And what we have been able to measure is that these initiatives have been able to reach over 2.5 million change makers worldwide. And it sounds like a lot, and it is, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And can we move to the next slide, please? And we'd love to share here, diving a little bit deeper into the topic of our summits, the Heart Summit movement. We held the first Wellbeing Summit in 2022 to bring our global community together. And this year, we decided to rebrand and bring to life this movement that is already taking form through us at the Wellbeing Project and our partners. And the brand is Hearth. And I really wanted to mention starting to mention this name before diving into the summits, because it's a really beautiful name. Hearth comes from this place that humanity has shared around the fire since fire existed, and how we have passed knowledge down to others generation from generation through sharing stories and building community around the fire. So that's what we try to replicate in our summits. And another beautiful thing is that hearth is actually a word that also holds other words in it. As you can read, hearth holds the word heart, earth, here, and art. And they are all words that we also, our summits and our whole movement is really rooted in feeling through the heart and connecting to the earth and the earth's well-being. And art is at the core of everything we do in the summits. We see art as a universal language for expressing well-being. And even though for example, I'm from Mexico and I connect from someone in Japan and maybe we don't speak the same language, we can communicate and connect through art, through music, through culture. So that's at the core of our summits. The first summit was in 2022. And this inspiring event caused a huge ripple effect. 5 of our partners from different regions around the world who were at that summit reached out to us, mentioning how amazing and magical the event was and the importance that they saw in taking this event back home. So in 2023, there were 5 regional summits where partners of ours took these events back home, made them theirs, tropicalized and really built from the regions that they represented to bring these events to life, connecting with local leaders, people, experts from the region, local traditions, connecting to their indigenous communities and to how things are done in their region, and really connecting through that at their summits. And we started seeing how these events were locally rooted, but at the same time, universally human. And that's what represents the Heart Summit movement for us. It is a locally rooted, universally human movement. These regional events had kept appearing or being born, with more partners being inspired all over the world. This year, in total, we're hosting 10, and there's more planned for next year. We see that between September, when the first regional summit happened in 2023, and June next year, members and partners of our community would have hosted 24 summits, regional summits in total, in 16 countries, each one with its own uniqueness, and welcoming 10,000 change makers from 80 countries. And we're replicating the second edition of our global summit, the first one, 2022. The second edition is happening next year, 2025. And we see it as a space that will unite all of these regional learnings in a global event. Through this movement, we're still keeping working on the objective of the Wellbeing Project, which is to catalyze this change in culture for change makers and in change making everywhere. And can we move to the next slide? Thank you. So noticing that also Impact Hub works in this way, you have Impact Hubs in every city and by regions, but then you're a global movement with a global network around the world. We wanted to share a lot about our regional approach and how this has changed the way and the strategy at the Wellbeing Project. I mentioned a bit about how this happened through the summits. We saw it firsthand, how people something changed, something clicked in them, and this inspired them to take the event home and to inspire more people. We see the summits as something that are something that is bringing a sense of belonging to the community and the region, a space for connecting with others who have similar objectives and passions. It's also amazing to presence because there's energy and momentum happening and with new connections happening in those events. And we see these collaborations as work that is coming alive at the events with the same objective in mind for a brighter future and a true change in the culture change, in the social change field to change the culture. And so, about the strategy in the Wellbeing Project, we saw our role as being here to help hold our partners and organizers and all of these teams who are so inspired to bring their events home, but really leaving space for them to bring the particularities of their context, of their region, so that the event is 100% locally led and relevant to that context. So we're here to support those teams and those initiatives, but the initiatives are really true to their region. And in helping these summits develop, we also help give support to the ecosystems that are sprouting from these events. We see our work as building a bridge that does not exist, but a bridge that also needs to be sustainable. So we work on building a bridge that is connecting the available knowledge in the region, the initiatives that already exist around well-being and advancing this culture change with the change makers that are interested, with people that don't know about this topic but would love to be involved, and with funders that wish to be involved and to catalyze this movement further. And as I said, these ecosystems are sprouting from the events. They serve and nourish the global movement, each of them with their unique particularities. And digging deeper into these ecosystems, there's different components that are coming alive. And it's beautiful to presence it and to see the magic happening. In each regional ecosystems or regional hubs that are being born, we see the creation of new or stronger communities of change makers coming together to work on this in a collaborative way. The creation of new content or dissemination of these new or existing content. Research, connecting with local research partners to create a local baseline of the status of well-being in their region, or be able to measure the impact that this change could have in the region. Mapping actors and initiatives that already exist, and also forming donor collaboratives. And these donor collaboratives are one of the most recent things that has emerged in the Wellbeing Project, where funders come together to build a strategy over 3-5 years together around well-being for the social change field. Today, as I said, this all started with the summits in 2022, so it's less than 3 years, but to this day, we're already holding ecosystems in Latin America, Africa, Southeast Asia, which includes India and Bangladesh, and East Asia, Malaysia, Philippines, and Japan. And can we move to the next slide? Thank you. And as Tom mentioned, we're so happy and so honored to present here how two of your colleagues around the world, two impact hubs, have already hosted a summit in their regions. Hearth Summit Athens, hosted by Impact Hub Athens, happened last week. This is very, very recent. It was an amazing event. I personally was not able to be there, but some of our colleagues were there, and they were sharing pictures, videos, testimonies from participants. And this is all catalyzed by the work of the Impact Hub Athens. This summit was focused on well-being cities, on the future of sustainable urban living, and addressing what opportunities there are, as well as challenges and solutions for a good life. So these events are around well-being, but as you see, the one in Athens, they can be thematic or really specific or core, like with a core theme. And the second summit, hosted by Impact Hub Kuala Lumpur, will be in Malaysia in December. So a month from now, the summit will be happening. It will be the first summit of its kind for Southeast Asia. And the focus for this summit is going to be youth empowerment, sustainable business, indigenous wisdom, and climate resilience. As I mentioned, we're here to support all of those teams and work hand in hand on this journey towards the summit. But the event is 100% theirs. They are the ones who are catalyzing this for the region, connecting with partners, with the Impact Hub community and people that need to be there. So yeah, this is all possible because of them. And can we move to the next slide? Yeah, so lastly, we really wanted to take this opportunity to make an invitation to all of you to get involved. Our doors are super open. We would be so happy to collaborate with you in the way that makes more sense to you guys. As I mentioned, everything in the Wellbeing Project is a co-creation and a collaboration, and we meet you where you are. So we put here some opportunities where you can get involved. First, it can be by attending one of the summits around the world, or let us know who should be at these summits. Second, hosting a summit, learning from Athens and Kuala Lumpur and the rest of our organizers, hosting a summit in your region with your local partners. Help us build and strengthen the ecosystems that are being born around the world with your networks and partners that you already work with. And lastly, to please join general newsletter from the Wellbeing Project. Our news and events are super open to the community, and you can also share those with your communities at each Impact Hub. And yeah, I'm leaving here our emails from the regional networks team in case you want to get in touch and have more questions. As I mentioned, there will be a space at the end for Q&A, but we're so happy to be here and to listen to you guys. I hope this information was inspiring, and I'm glad to pass it over to Aaron for the next slide.
Thank you, Ale, and thank you for describing that so beautifully. I think you've already gotten a sense from Ale of the fact that these summits are really exploring the intersection of inner well-being, organizational well-being, societal well-being, and ecological well-being. And so there's a whole range of different topics that come into play as we explore across that and explore the interconnection. In our work more generally, as Ale mentioned, we really anchor in inner well-being, but we also have three other areas of focus. One is organizational well-being, and there's a lot of work that we do around that, and a lot of content, both in terms of research as well as in terms of the way it shows up at the summit. But for today, I just wanted to focus on two big topics that we've been hosting and holding for several years, for about 5 or 6 years now. And that for us really are about showing how these different levels of well-being are interconnected, and also give us glimpses into the way that interconnecting these things can show us new paths for social change. And so those two topics are ecological belonging and intergenerational trauma. intergenerational trauma goes along with collective healing. These sound like really, really complex expressions in a way. But what they allow us to do by hosting this work is to really reinforce a movement, a context of exploration around well-being that has a more profound understanding of what we actually mean by well-being and the way it interconnects with many of the major issues that we're working with. So maybe we could go to the next slide. So let's start with intergenerational trauma. So we started focusing on this about actually 6 or 7 years ago. When we started off the work with the project, as we were working with individual change makers and their well-being, what became clear very quickly was that for many of us working in social change, we come from contexts where trauma has been present in our histories, or we're working in contexts where trauma is actually happening, or both. And more generally, as we started to look at this, we started to see that this was present in many of the places or all of the places in which we spend time. So in our homes, communities, institutions, our systems, and our relationships. And for us, as we had worked with individual change makers, we could see how it affected them. It affected the work that we all do, and it affected all of these different structures in our community. So what we initially did was convened a think tank in collaboration with Georgetown to really explore this topic and to build a base of research and a base of learning. And so Ale underlined the way that we work in a co-creative way. This is really work that's been built over, I think, over 200 engagements with our community and engaging hundreds of voices across our community to really provide feedback as we've gone along. We've been releasing content, research, as well as articles on the subject, including an article that came out earlier this year in Stanford Social Innovation Review. That was one of their most read articles of all time. I think Tom might have just shared the link to that article, or Al might have just shared the link to that article in the chat. So one part is research and content that we've been releasing. Another way that we've actually also highlighted the subject is by having it be a topic that's present at essentially all of the regional summits, and where we look at how it is present and how it's being worked on in those local contexts. We have been doing workshops and plenaries that draw on local resources and local knowledge. So, for example, in Colombia, we had indigenous community members speaking about ancestral healing. In Senegal, we had people from a number of communities in and around Senegal sharing about how they had been working on community healing. And so it's a way for the community itself to tap into some of the resources, some of their cultural practices around healing as part of addressing this and moving towards collective healing. And then we've also been highlighting this through the role of the arts. So that's the way it's present at the summits. And what's exciting is we'll be launching an entirely new phase of work around this area that will have opportunities for organizations to learn how to weave this kind of orientation and a collective healing orientation into their work in the next couple of months, as well as an opportunity, a training opportunity for members of the social change community to find out more, to really immerse themselves in a deep understanding of trauma for themselves, of collective healing for themselves, but also in the work that we do in the world. So we'll be sharing more information about that. And again, you can contact our regional team, as Ale shared, to be connected to this work. So this is one of the core themes running across our work. The other one, we could go to the next page now, Al, thank you, is ecological belonging. And in some ways, ecological belonging and intergenerational trauma, collective healing go together. For us, ecological belonging is about how we rebuild relationality to ourselves, to each other, and to our broader natural world. This is something that we as humans have done for tens of thousands of years. In previous generations, the way that we would do this was through individual, family, community ritual that would happen at a daily level, that would happen at a weekly level, that would happen at seasons. And what they did was they brought us back to that connection we have to the rest of the natural world, that connection to each other. It connected us as well with our dependence and our interdependence with everything else around us. So to make this a bit more concrete, there are 2 or 3 examples for me that come to mind. One is in India, the festival of Holi. I think probably most of the people on the call are aware of that festival. It's the one where we throw a lot of color at people. And the interesting thing about that festival is it's actually meant to be a celebration of the spring. It's a way to come back to remembering that turning of seasons, that turning towards planting again and seeding, so that we will eventually have the food that we need. Or in the Western context, and in the Christian context specifically, saying grace at meals. So when people would say grace, 3 times a day, 7 days a week, even if you only tuned in once or twice a week, what you were remembering was where the food came from, who had been involved in the process, farmers. It was a practice of gratitude and a practice of abundance. And there was a web of these kinds of practices of ritual that held us in interrelationality. They held complex information. We live in a world today where sometimes we try to assume that we should take tens of thousands of pages of information and somehow be able to absorb them. But actually, through these practices, we were able to keep complex information present with us as well. And so for us, the question has been, how do we renew this in the world that we live in? How do we remember it, renew it, and also reweave it for a new time, for this day and age, where we're living in a contemporary world where technology and many other things are present? What does this need to look like today? With that intention of, again, rebuilding relationality. So there's that invisible architecture, which is what we've been calling this, but then also like the enabling elements that allow for this kind of invisible architecture to thrive. So you could look at this from a policy perspective. You could look at this from the perspective of how do you build a city with belonging at the heart of it. You could look at this in terms of education. Like there's a range of different ways of looking at the enabling environment. So this topic too is present across all the work that we do at the project. It's also present, as Alejandro was pointing out, across all of our regional summits, and it's both a topic on the main stage, it's part of workshops. We've had extraordinary content around this area, around reweaving rituals, around healing, really drawing on traditional and local practice and history and knowledge. We've also been experimenting with art and the role of artists at the heart of this kind of work. And so we've had a call for artists. We've been calling them ritual alchemists around the world. And so they've been working with these regional summits to help them explore rituals that had existed in those places for hundreds of thousands of years, and how with the community they can be updated for the current day. We've also have a fellowship program around this that we've been doing with 5 universities around the world. And so we have a group of about 75 students that are taking this 2-year fellowship program, exploring this topic from a number of different perspectives. And then finally, partly because people reached out to us asking about this, we have hearth dinners happening. We had people reach out and ask us how they could host a dinner conversation around this topic or host ongoing dinner conversations. And so what we did for that was actually create a dinner guide that could actually be used in any kind of like local context. And for us, it's been really, really cool to both see the way that people are using this and also to experiment with this ourselves. I participated in 2 of these over the last week in very different settings, and in Mexico and in India. And it's just been really wonderful to see how it brings back a sense of connection that's very powerful. So we'll share that dinner guide as well in the chat. With that, Ale, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you. I think it's Sean now for the activity on the next slide.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope everyone is still tuned in. We thought we would help you to experience what we do with ecological belonging when we're meeting people where they are. The dinner that Aaron just described, the meetings we have with people, taking the work that Aaron just described, it's really about helping people in many ways to remember what already exists within themselves, within their own cultural background, within their ancestral background. And so remember, and then help them to renew that and help them to reweave it. And often it's in a very simple process of prompt questions. So we thought we would start with one of those with you today. Are we able to click on there? Oh, okay, I see there's a link. If you clicked on the link that's in the chat, you'll see the question that is posed, a word that comes to mind when you think about our shared humanity. And I think anyone who's watching the election in the United States today can understand there's certainly a lot that divides us. It's nice to take a moment to reflect, what is it that is common in our shared humanity? So I invite everyone to take a moment, your thoughts there. Doesn't have to be one word, it could be many. There is an amazing opportunity that most of us never or rarely take in our busy lives, which is taking that one moment to reflect on something. The underlying question with the work we're doing with ecological belonging is, how do we live? And if you ask yourself that question, or your friends or people you're sharing dinner with, how do we live? What does it mean to live? What does a life worth living look like? It often is in the most simple questions when you get people to reconnect with themselves and their connection with one another, and their connection with the broader ecology around them. And it's beautiful work. So I thank you for sharing some of these thoughts here. Really beautiful words. Thank you. It's you've seen the website here. We would most definitely invite everyone to reach out, to learn more, to engage with us in different ways, and we'll be sure to respond to that. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you for sharing your words here. Pass it back to you, Ale.
Thank you. And it's also amazing to see the answers and reflect on how those mean in a certain way, or define our shared humanity. I also loved reading your answers. Thank you so much, everyone, and Sean for leading the activity. We wanted to end the call with community sharing, since you are all part of this movement. So we want to open up this space to hear from you. You can share your thoughts, reflections, anything that's coming up for you guys after hearing us today, and also open up the space for questions.
Ale, one thing that I'll just mention maybe is that the other thing that we can do for members of the community here is also send out a list of different other resources, like on organizational well-being and some of the research we've done there. I'm just thinking back about how people checked in at the beginning of the call, that some of that content also might be really interesting and helpful to some of the the makers that are present.
Yes, thank you, Aaron. Absolutely. And please, to everyone in the audience, feel free to write in the chat anything that's coming up. We would be really happy to read your thoughts and questions. I think we have a Q&A section specifically.
Maria, thanks for the comment. I'm kind of curious, like, what kind of collaboration would you like to see? And I guess there's some like raised hands. You can also raise your hands, I guess. And there's some people. So Maria, I think Al can invite you onto the stage. This is a new platform for us, so we're just figuring this out too.
Oh, I'm at its stage now? No.
Yes.
Can people hear? Oh, great. So good. I didn't know I was in stage already. No, I feel like, the way that you did those festivals with Impact Hub Kuala Lumpur and Impact Hub Athens would be good to see more of that happening. And more of us learning about your practices, right? So how can we create a feedback loop of, for instance, we know that art is really important for well-being, and we've been doing this, but it's always really nice if there is like publications and things that you're doing, that we create more of like a loop, that we are always like receiving more and more of this, so we can implement it. Yeah, like more synergy between the two organizations, because I feel like there is a lot of room for that. And we did codify some of the, you know by different stages of that the social entrepreneur is, we codify with Joshua, like how they should be looking at their well-being. So maybe it's time to kind of upgrade this with some of those new learnings that you guys are bringing. I think this is it. Then I don't know, like many maybe it's a question also for the community, like what other ways that we could be collaborating with the Wellbeing Project. Maybe that's a good question for the public as well.
I have to say this is a really interesting platform where there's stuff coming in the chat and there's stuff coming in questions. So Ali, maybe between the two of us, we can try to, and Sean, like we can try to work this out. Maybe we can start with the questions. So Ali, I don't know if you can see that. What support? Maybe I'll read it to you.
Yes.
What support? Oh, you can see it.
Yes, it's amazing how the questions come up on the screen.
Oh, they do?
I think everyone. I loved your comment, Maria, by the way. Thank you for sharing that. And I think it relates to this question too, about us sharing resources through more channels, or more clear channels about what we're doing. And we try to make our materials easy to use. To this question. So the hearth dinner methodology is on the link that I shared, but we're always open. Like if you have any additional questions or things that you're not so sure about, we're always open and really attentive to emails to respond to you guys. And also it helps us improve. So if something is not clear or easy, we're here to work with you to improve it.
And we can even give it a more inviting name. It's the guide. It's not even a methodology if that scares some people off. It's it's very straightforward. this is something, and I know Hermes also suggested it. They're relatively easy to do. We've all hosted dinners. We provide within the dinner guide a series of questions that you could use as prompts. What we've noticed in the dinners that we've hosted, usually it's one or two questions, and the most important thing is inviting people in, letting them know that it'll be sort of prompt driven thematic dinner around a certain discussion, and just let the conversation go. It's relatively straightforward. But one thing that would be wonderful, and you'll see this in the dinner guide itself, is that if you've done it, we'd love to hear some of the feedback, and there's suggestions for how to collect that as well. But as always, if you have any questions, feel free to message us about that.
And then maybe I could take on the question that's on the screen right now. So I think there are a couple of different things. I shared that we're going to be announcing a couple of different initiatives in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So one is a community of practice for about 20 to 25 organizations that really want to build a collective healing approach into their work. We're going to ask organizations to apply instead of individuals. But what might be interesting to look at is whether there's an application that comes in from a couple of different impact hubs or Impact Hub Global and a couple of different impact hubs, so that it acts in a more systemic way around this topic. The second is we'll be launching a 9-month learning program. At the end of it, there will actually be a diploma that actually is a deep dive into trauma and into healing. And part of it is really looking at our own experience. Part of it's looking at also how it shows up in our communities and how we can address it there. And that will be a call for application to 150 people to participate in this, with some really outstanding and extraordinary experts from around the world. So both of these could be opportunities for Impact Hub makers to actually really dive into this and be supported in different ways around this work. Stephanie, I hope that's helpful, just as a bit of a snapshot of some of the opportunities that will be present. And then, of course, this topic is also present in our summits at each one of them. And we will probably also have another webinar series on this topic as well that starts off mid next year. I think the screen being up there is this to welcome any more questions or reflections that people might have. So glad for more questions, glad for more reflections from people in the group too.
And I'm reading Tina's comment in the chat, which got a lot of reactions about maybe a North America regional meetup. Yes, invite us. I don't know if you'd like to share about that, Tina.
Tina, if you do want to say anything, you could always raise your hand and then we can invite you to the stage as well.
While we're waiting, even the previous question, it was more specific to intergenerational trauma, but also on the realities of the world we're living in right now. And if we look at the sort of the root causes of many of the problems we're talking about, whether it's all the various environmental challenges we have, cultural crises, injustices. We could list everything, of course, but this idea that it is all connected to the healing or to the traumas that we have felt, that we've experienced ourselves or in our communities, and the way ecological belonging ties together with those traumas, with those healing processes, is at the root of who we are as humans, is this need for community, for this need for being together. You guys do it so wonderfully well in having these impact hubs and having communities. So whether it's speaking specifically about uh, one's trauma issues, or as experienced as individuals or communities, or finding ways to bring people together around these topics, it's amazing that you already have the infrastructure and the community to exist. It's such an important part. So I'm grateful that this topic was raised, because you're all very well suited in that respect.
Kurtu, thank you for actually having looked at the Declaration of Wellbeing. That's wonderful. And actually, like, an interesting story about that Declaration of Wellbeing was that was collectively created across our community. We host, as Ellie shared with you earlier in our work, we host a number of different networks. There are over 1,200 organizations involved. And we actually ended up getting all of them to give a little piece of input from many different parts of the world, including from Berlin, actually. And so all of that through many, many months got synthesized down and actually made into a poem by a poet, taking in all the feedback. So thank you for having given that a look. Oh, there's an Impact Hub shout out for this one. The Impact Hub also played a really big role in facilitating the process that took us to getting that Declaration of Wellbeing.
So maybe a few more seconds to see if anybody wants to jump forward with any final questions, or also if you're doing anything in your Impact Hub that's focused on well-being that you would like to share with the group, because there is a lot of practice there in the network. So it would be great if anybody would like to provide some stories.
Yeah, I'll just echo that, Tom. Would love to hear stories. So if someone was up for putting their hand up just to share something from the Impact Hub context, that'd be amazing. I think we have someone.
We do.
Zoe Schneider.
Yes, hi, how are you guys?
Good, thank you. Welcome.
We lost Zoe. We had Zoe. We lost Zoe. Did she?
Let's see. Do you guys have me again? Yes, I'm in the office. But what I was saying, that here in Caracas, we have a meditation suite in our spaces where our members and team of makers can go at any time to meditate with an app. And also, right now we had difficult situation with the elections. So we started a new initiative that is Wellbeing First Days, that we bring an expert in different types of subjects regarding well-being, such as psychologists, yogis, meditations, guru, anything. So we dedicate an hour each first day with our members to create these activities to promote their well-being, and especially with the post-electoral situation that everybody was like really stressed, and had lots of anxiety, this was a way for us to, well, create a community and work towards their well-being.
Zoe, that's awesome. All I can do is really echo what's in the chat. There's so many people that have been like proclaiming that Impact Hub Caracas rocks. You guys are making incredible things happen in a really tough environment. Thank you for sharing that and for the inspiration too.
No, thank you for the session. It's really appreciated.
Thank you. It's like I think one of the things that's really beautiful is just seeing how much is already being done in the community as well. This really is collective. We're excited that we're all doing this together. So excited to see what we can do in collaboration to continue this work.
And we also have contribution from Grace in the chat, who is integrating positive psychology modules into their entrepreneurial support. So that's a really good example of how, as Maria said earlier, you can think about the journey your entrepreneur is going through and how you can already weave well-being into your existing offerings as well. So that's really interesting, Grace. Thank you. And as Hermes says, if you do want any other inspiration, check out the Integrating Wellbeing Toolkit as well, which you can find on the knowledge space. And it's a link to in the chat further above too. So Aaron, Sean, and Alejandra, thank you so much. Is there anything that you would like to say to close the session or any final words from your side?
No, thank you. I would just like to reiterate that we're here and it would be amazing to hear from you guys. We'll also be sharing our emails so that you can get in touch. Our doors are always open. Thank you for being here.
Just would echo what Ali said. It's been such a pleasure for us to partner through the years with the Impact Hub. What an extraordinary community, both the team as well as your members. And so it's been a pleasure to be here present with you guys. And Ali shared that there was a whole bunch more summits that are coming to regions near you. And so please look for those as well, because like looking at some of these places, some of them will be happening in places near you. And so we're excited to meet you and to continue the journey together. Thank you. And Tom, thank you as well.
Thank you very much for
the wonderful host.
Oh, anytime. Thanks so much for joining us, and thanks for all of the collaborations over the years. What we often do is when the Wellbeing Project has an opportunity, we share it through our internal comms, on our Makers Digest, on Slack, and so on. So do keep your eyes peeled for those opportunities. And everything discussed today will be shared with you through Harvesting soon after the event. So you can process everything and do consider what you can apply to your organizations and with your communities as well. And any ideas, do share them in the Slack channels as well. That's what they're there for. So we are closing the day, the first day of the Makers Festival. So tomorrow we start with a session with EY on megatrends. So EY are another one of our partners that we work with on a global level, and we connect their local branches with impact hubs. And they prepared a session on really what are the big shifts that we're seeing in society, in the economy, in climate, and what that means for how we position ourselves. And one of their team hosting that session is based in the States. So they're going to be looking very carefully at what's happening over the next 12 hours that's going to shape the content of their session. So really hope to see you in the morning. Maybe for North America, Latin America, that's too early, but we have the recording. See you later in the day. Enjoy your evenings and your afternoons. And thanks again to the Wellbeing Project. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Alejandra. Thanks, Sean. And thanks to everyone for producing great content today and participating. So with that, let's close day one and see you for day two. Bye-bye.